You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in.
a Mamamia podcast.
Hello and welcome to Cancelled. I'm Clare Stephens, and on this podcast I tell the story of a celebrity's or a TV show's or a movie's cancellation from beginning to end.
And I'm Jessie Stephens. I don't do any preparation. Before this podcast, I show up and my brief says on my piece of paper, have some fun. My job is to have fun. I will ask questions. I will argue for the sake of it because this is a court of law where we decide whether something should or should not be cancelled.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do. Not completely, but that's fine. I mean, you didn't do any prep for this, so how can I expect you to get anything right? But basically, we present our charges and sentences because it's important that we treat celebrity crimes like real crimes and give them punishments that make sense. We don't know anything about law, so sometimes it gets a bit messy, doesn't it? Today, we are talking about one of the most iconic Christmas movies, I'd say one of the most iconic movies of all time, that's had a bit of a re-evaluation in recent years, and I feel weird about the re-evaluation, but then I did some research. It's called Love Actually.
Seems to me that love is everywhere. Often it's not particularly dignified or newsworthy, but it's always there.
My structure is as follows. I'm going to start with some broad problems. Then I'm going to go into each of the couples and go into the problems with their relationships.
There are a lot of couples.
There are a lot. I left out the porno couple because they just don't get
Yeah,
enough.
I don't even know their arc.
Yeah, I don't really think they've got an arc. Then I've got the redeeming factors, and then we do have charges and sentences. Okay, let's get stuck in. There is a Jezebel article that was published in 2013 that just shits all over Love Actually. Certain things I think are pretty ridiculous.
Wait, it came out in
2003?
All right, so this is 10 years on.
Yep, 10 years on, it's like, actually, it's not the movie you thought it was. And I'm like, yes, it is.
It's exactly the movie I thought it was.
It says it's the height of privilege that the film opens and closes with the airport because it's like not everyone can go to an airport.
Oh, go.
And that
fuck
really
yourself.
upsets me.
No,
that makes me. I'm like, I'm not cancelling a film
because of an airport
because
scene.
it's real airport footage. I would like to defend the airport thing because this is 2 years after 9/11. And by the way, I rewatched Love Actually in the lead up to this and I smiled the entire way through, even though I do recognise the problems. But they reference that in the opening. Hugh Grant's voiceover.
When the planes hit the Twin Towers, as far as I know, none of the phone calls from the people on board were messages of hate or revenge. They were all messages of love.
And I'm like, oh, stop it. But I keep thinking when I do see those airport montages, you know, it's like somebody getting off a plane and hugging their partner or kids or whatever. I'm like, God, you're smelly after getting off a plane.
Oh, see, I was thinking more like how virus riddled.
Oh,
Are we bringing
no masks?
an Omicron? Are we bringing I'm going to say chi. I don't think that's how you say it, but
think it's
another, a Z. I mean, I think Delta's done.
Yeah.
Are we bringing some Greek alphabet back?
We are.
That we don't know yet. That's why we ought not to touch the people getting off the dirty plane.
Exactly.
Okay? Because we've sat in people's fart smell.
And people's nasal things.
Exactly. There's a lot of... Apparently when you open the doors of a plane,
There's a smell.
there's a smell, and it's the smell of humans, and it's yucky. It's the smell of COVID.
Yeah. However, the Jezebel article does make a few good points. It argues that agency belongs solely to the male characters in this, while women, often their younger employees, are silent, appreciative, pretty things. The ones...
That's just film.
Is that okay?
Like, you can't just cancel the genre of film.
Can't
It's just how films are made. It's like there was a formula and the guy who wrote this, I'm assuming it was a guy, adhered to the rule book.
He did. The women who have any cares or responsibilities beyond pleasing men seem to get punished, missing out on love and having to listen to Joni Mitchell alone.
Well,
And
I
crying.
mean, that's also life, isn't it?
The movie is very heteronormative. There are 9 stories, all straight. Same-sex romance is gently mocked. At the wedding, one of the first scenes, Peter, the groom, says to his best man, Mark,
Do you admit the Brazilian prostitutes were a mistake?
I do.
And it would have been much better if they'd not turned out to be men.
That is true.
So I'm going to defend this. You're absolutely right. there should have been same-sex couples. It's also incredibly white. There are 100 things that we can look back on with our lens of today. This was in a world where same-sex marriage still wasn't legalised. It is a product of the context in which it was produced. It says a lot about who we were at that time, how marginalised particular sexualities and gender identities were. You can't blame the guy who wrote it.
I would also like to say, my defence is, how about Billy Mack and his relationship with his manager, Joe? That was a love story.
It was very subtle.
That was perhaps the greatest love story of all.
Exactly. And they were definitely in love. It was a full, like, Elton John
vibe,
right?
Yeah, 100%. There's also a lot of fat phobia. There's the fat phobia against Aurelia's sister, you know, the girl in the little French town, and Natalie, who ends up with Hugh Grant. And she's called the chubby girl, huge thighs. There's also fat shaming with Billy's manager, Joe. He constantly calls him chubby.
Yeah. Any character who isn't Keira Knightley is called fat in every scene.
Yes, exactly. Actually, that's true because Emma Thompson also refers to herself as fat.
Yeah.
That's
it's
the
almost
problem.
like they need to preface their existence.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley was also like 16 or 17 in that movie. She was almost the same age as the little boy, Sam.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
That's a fun fact. The less a woman talks in this movie, the more lovable she is. The number of words, according to Jezebel, that a woman is allowed is 27. Then you're done, like Emma Thompson.
Okay.
27 is the magic number. So don't say more than 27 words. Or
how about the woman who spoke Portuguese? Did they have to be English words?
I think
I don't think she said any
I don't
English
think she
words.
said more than 27 anyway. Even if they were in Portuguese.
That relationship always really bothered me because I just think that relationships are forged over discussions about what food you liked in primary school.
Yeah. I think you're saying that relationships are formed by communication. And
in
it
the
is-
same language.
And it is a fact that they had never had a conversation when he proposed.
No. He liked how she looked when she took her clothes off and she dove into the water to save his
Manuscript
papers.
that he was typing on a typewriter in
In
2003.
the wind.
With no copies.
In the wind.
Yeah, outside in the wind. The movie definitely doesn't pass the Bechdel test, which asks whether a work of fiction features at least two women who talk to each other about something other than a man. I would argue that in general, even the men in this movie are usually talking about women because it's about heterosexual
There
love.
is one scene where it passes the Bechdel test.
What?
May I present my evidence?
Yeah.
When Emma Thompson, whose name is Karen in
Yeah.
this film,
Yeah.
she's literally named Karen,
Yeah.
speaks to her daughter about being a lobster in the nativity scene.
Okay.
We've been given our parts in the nativity play. And I'm the lobster.
The lobster?
Yeah,
In the nativity play?
yeah, first lobster.
All right.
They are two women talking about
Part of the Bechdel test is that the two women have to be named. Do you know her daughter's name?
Daisy.
Okay.
I Googled it.
Okay.
I Googled it. What frustrates me about that scene is that she doesn't have enough of a problem with the lobster.
Okay.
Because Jesus's nativity scene, wherever that is, Jerusalem-ish, I don't think it's near a body of water.
Yeah.
So where would the lobster have come? Did the lobster crawl? In which case, a lobster needs a central character, not a background character, because that lobster defied the odds.
Did.
And if my kid came and said, I'm the lobster in the nativity scene, I'd say, Mummy's calling the teacher because she's taking the piss. Have some respect for Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. It does pass the Bechdel test the other way around, which obviously isn't a thing, but I just would like to point out that there are times when men talk to other men about things that aren't women, such as when the Prime Minister talks about foreign policy with the President.
Well, that's more interesting, isn't it?
Oh my God. Here's a very telling quote from Jezebel, and you tell me if you agree. Everything in this movie is effing insane. That's not how press conferences work. That's not how diplomacy works. That's not how prime ministers work. Nothing is how anything works. That's not how weddings work. That's not how audio recording works. That's not how saxophones work. That's not how hair works. That's not how business meetings work. That's not how art works. That's not how grief works. That's not how primary school Christmas concerts work. That's not how airports work. That's not how music charts work. That's not how fat works. And none of it is how love works.
Okay, that's just film.
I agree.
You know in The Simpsons where they're like, oh, we need cows in this scene so they paint horses white and black? Like that's just what film is. We don't want to watch how things actually work because that's
not
very boring.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the individual couples. We'll start with Mark and Juliet.
But you never talk to me. You always talk to Peter. You don't like me.
Mark is played by Andrew Lincoln and Juliet is Keira Knightley. In the opening few minutes, we learn that Mark has hired unwelcome sex workers for his friend's Bucks night. And while that's problematic, I think that seems pretty standard. I'm going to let that go. But he does develop into a full-on creep. He's secretly in love with his best friend's fiancée, and when he films at their wedding, he only films her.
I love it. I love it.
Which would actually be really creepy and weird, and she'd have every right to be like, sir, no.
I love it.
He also doesn't know her. He doesn't speak to her. She says, but you never talk to me, you don't like me. So what is he in love with? He's in love with her face.
So am I. She's beautiful. Oh, I quite like this storyline. I think it's realistic. I think it's sexy.
He's made a wank tape. He has made a wank tape that he is keeping hidden in his home and not sharing with the bride.
I like the idea of one day that being given to her kids as his mummy and daddy's wedding tape. And the kid going, Mummy, why is it just close-ups of your face? Where's Daddy? Where's Daddy in this? How pissed off would Daddy be?
I know.
His absence completely from the wedding tape.
He puts her in a really uncomfortable situation by declaring his love when she's married. He's also, like, rude to her.
But you got to tell the truth at Christmas time.
Yeah, which I don't know where that message came from.
I just think it's a good message.
How did Mark know that Juliet was going to answer the door on Christmas Eve or whenever that was? So you know how he knocks on the door and he's got the posters?
Because he knows who's going to answer the door. There's normally one person.
What if his friend answered? Then he was caught with his posters and his friend goes, what? Why are you?
He would say, it's the wrong address. I was going next door. Or he would say, could you send Juliet out?
And what if he had interrupted at any point?
I don't know. I don't think that would have happened. It's very romantic.
I don't know if it is in hindsight. I think it's creepy. I think it's the male gaze. I think he made a wank tape. Let's move on to Sam and Joanna.
Sam? I thought you didn't know my name. Of course I do. Oh, Jesus. Here, I've got to run.
Sam was the guy in the Queen's Gambit.
I know.
Really important that he grew up because it's always a surprise when children in films grow up
into adults that look like they did as kids.
Always a shock.
Yeah.
Every time we do a story on it, goes nuts because people go, oh, grew up.
He's still around.
Has a similar face. Different, but similar. Yes. Sam is in love with Joanna, but she doesn't even know he exists. So he has to make her fall in love with him. He learns to play the drums to impress her. Here's an idea. Why not talk to her?
No one does that. In primary school, no one talks to each other. I liked a boy in primary school. You know what I did? Dad, for some reason, owned a shop that made no money. That's a whole other story. We should do an episode on it. Anyway, shop earned no money. The shop next door had some expired chips. Sam Boyd chips. Right? There are 100 packets.
Yeah.
And I said, and Dad brought them home, and he said, I have some expired Sam Boyd chips. And I said, oh my God, it's Christmas. So what did I do? I brought 10 packets to school. I gave them to the boy I loved. I said, would you like some Sam Boyd chips? And he looked at me and he said, yes. And for a week he talked to me because I would bring him Sam Boyd chips. I knew what flavour he liked. And when I stopped, he stopped talking to me. Okay? Because the chips ran out.
That's a love story.
It's a love story. I knew that my personality wasn't going to win him over. I was a weird kid and an ugly kid. I needed to find creative ways to get his attention, such as Sam Boyd chips. So that kid's doing the same thing. That girl's never going to be interested in him. He's a weedy little, he's too little. He's not particularly handsome in this. He grew up handsome.
Okay, another problem with their storyline is we can't be running through airports with no boarding pass post 9/11.
No, we can't. It's very terroristic.
That was, he would have
yelling,
been shot.
get out of my way. He would have actually been shot.
That's really screwed up. So that's them.
Yeah.
But they're children, so they're not the biggest focus of my criticism.
No.
Let's move to Jamie and Aurelia.
Eu ver aqui para te pedir para casar conmigo.
Jamie is cheated on by his wife. Quite sad. And so he goes to France to write
I think about
his
that
book.
scene all the time. Every time I come home from work earlier than I should, I think I will find my partner in bed with a colleague.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think about that often.
So he goes to France to write his book, and this is how I always picture myself writing a book, that I'll be in a cabin in France with a lake.
In the wind.
And there'll be no technology. I'll just have like black coffee, and I will have a servant.
Yeah. She's kind of positioned as like a housekeeper.
Yeah. But
She's a servant.
It's very much. It's
a
very,
slave.
Yeah.
She's a slave. So we go to France, we
get
find
a
ourselves
slave.
a slave, and we say, make me some coffee, dive into the water and retrieve my wet manuscript.
And then I'll marry you.
And then I'll marry you.
It's very much the fact that he gets to France, an older woman comes to the door and delivers him a woman and goes,
Yeah.
here you go.
Yeah.
Here's one for you.
Yeah. She has a group of slaves sitting at home, and
Yeah.
she says, you can have this slave.
Yeah. So she's like the housekeeper. She speaks no English.
Part of a child trafficking ring.
I
mean,
know.
There's a backstory.
I know. Apparently they fall in love even though they can't speak to each other. He shows up at Christmas to propose to her, and I just need to reiterate, they know nothing about each other. He gets a woman without having to speak to her. What kind of message does that send anybody about love? Colin Firth then asks Aurelia's dad for her hand in marriage, and Aurelia's dad thinks he's referring to her sister. But of course not. Her sister is fat.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, that's a funny is that? Plot twist. Like, imagine
if somebody wanted to marry the one who isn't stick thin.
That's just a big
Classic.
old silly joke.
Great comedy.
Pause for laughter.
Yes. Miss Dunkin' Donuts.
No one wants to marry you, Miss Dunkin' Donuts. Give me the skinny one.
Cool. Aurelia's sister yells to the people in the neighbourhood, Father is about to sell Aurelia as a slave to this English man.
No, he already owns her as a
she's
slave.
not wrong. She's spot on. Can somebody listen to that, sister?
But why would he buy her as a slave when he already got her for free?
Yeah, true.
Like, no one's going to be like, hey, can I pay for my slave now? Like, he wants
Yeah.
to marry his slave. Yeah. Like, let's be clear.
He already owns her, so
Yeah.
deal. My defence against this, though, is I would also say yes if Colin Firth proposed without ever meeting him or ever having
Speaking
a conversation
the same
with him.
language.
So Aurelia, hard relate.
Hard relate. People are more likeable when you haven't spoken to them yet.
Yeah.
Like, I love people
She's
the most.
mysterious.
She's mysterious. Like, I love my partner, but I found him a lot more exciting when I
Yeah.
didn't know all these stories.
Yeah.
We laid in bed the other night and he said to me, tell me a secret. And I was silent for so long that we fell asleep. And that's the sadness of long-term relationships,
really is.
which is why everyone wants a Colin Firth and Aurelia relationship where you can never share a story. So you always wonder. You go, you know how sometimes you look at them and you're like, I wonder what your hobbies are. Like, he's just sitting there going, she's a ballerina.
Yeah.
She's an Olympic gymnast. He can't know for sure.
No.
They can't communicate.
Jamie says, Aurelia, tell me a secret. And she says, I have 3 sisters. And he's like, I didn't know that. Because we know nothing about each other.
Because we've never met.
Sarah and Carl.
Tell me exactly how long it is that you've been working here.
2 years, 7 months, 3 days, and I suppose, what, 2 hours?
And how long have you been in love with Carl, our enigmatic chief designer?
Sarah is in love with Carl, and her boss, Harry, is like, can you just tell him already? Which seems quite inappropriate for the workplace. Can you imagine if Mia took you aside? Well, you know what? Probably has happened in this workplace.
Okay, wait. Sarah is the one,
Laura Linney,
who wears a horrific hat to the wedding. There's a picture on Twitter that's like, can we all just reflect? And this is a cancelable offence.
Yeah.
Let's just look at what Sarah wore to that wedding. Because it's
Actually-
a woolen cap and a woolen jumper, and it's just very underdressed for a ceremony.
She only wears wool, which is signalling to everybody,
yeah.
I'm a woman who won't get a happy ending because I am a carer for somebody else.
It's foreshadowing. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
A woman who wears wool is destined to aloneness, sadness, and she's not entitled to love until she does wear a tighter dress and some heels.
Speaking of cancelable offences, Keira Knightley's wedding dress looks like a cardigan. And it's not nice. It's got kind of like fluff on it. She looks beautiful because she's Keira Knightley.
Do you remember that scene where she's got her little hat on?
Beret. It's horrible.
It's a beret. Have you read why she was wearing that? I was reading like her facts about Love Actually. She had a big pimple on the middle of her head, and so she had to wear that hat. And all the comments are like, pimple would have aged better because of that hat. It is so 2003. In fact, it was very 1999.
It really...
So it was over by the time she put it on.
Yeah. So...
she's with the hot guy. They don't talk either. Can he speak English?
Yes.
Carl.
He's beautiful.
He's beautiful but doesn't speak.
No, they don't really speak. But you know what? I actually have a little bit more respect for this relationship because although we don't see them speak, they have been colleagues for, she says it, like 2 years, 6 months. They have been colleagues, and I believe you could genuinely fall in love with someone you had worked with
who looked like
long.
that.
He's a
very
graphic designer. Maybe his work is very
hot.
good.
Graphic designer hot.
Yeah. But her phone keeps ringing. Very mysterious. She's got a secret. At the Christmas party, she finally gets her chance with Carl, but stop because her secret is revealed. She has a brother who calls sometimes.
Imagine that.
Because he's severely mentally ill and she's his primary carer. The scene where she's with Carl and her phone rings twice, doesn't ring any more than 2 times. It rings once, she answers. It rings again, she answers. On the second ring, Carl asks her not to answer the phone when her brother calls. Carl, this is the second phone call. Be patient. But because she answers that call, she's not allowed to have a happy ending because women aren't allowed to be a carer and also find love.
That's also the wool. I mean, the wool kind of destined her to sadness. Does he leave when she answers the phone?
Yes. We get kind of her on the phone and then she's in the hospital with her brother.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, the thing that gets me here is that surely most men, or good men, would understand if you were a carer for your brother and maybe be patient. Or, here's the thing, come with you. To visit your brother.
The brother.
Isn't it somewhat attractive that the person you like is super caring? No.
No, that's not it, is it?
But according to Jezebel, apparently a man can't share a woman with another man, even if it's her mentally unwell brother.
Okay, but since when are films meant to be the best parts of everyone? Like, there are lots of men who wouldn't come with you to the hospital or wouldn't ask a question.
But Carl isn't made out to be a villain. It's more just like, if your phone's gonna ring, you can't have a relationship. Moving on to Colin and the Americans.
Can I help you? Yes. I'd like a Budweiser, please. King of beers. Bud coming up.
Oh my God. Are you from England?
Colin's whole character is incredibly screwed up in hindsight.
love it.
He believes British girls are stuck up and that American girls are laid back.
Doesn't it begin with him berating a hospitality worker for giving him a canapé that looks like a finger?
He's serving them and he starts like kind of wiggling the canapé, being like, ooh, looks like a finger.
Food?
No thanks.
Yeah, a bit dodgy, isn't it? Looks like a dead baby's finger.
And then it turns out that she is the caterer.
Because you and I used to work in hospitality for a lot of years. People are really fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I remember going around with I've got a duck pancake, got a duck pancake, got a duck. Is that vegetarian? Yep. It's vegetarian. The duck is a vegetarian duck.
I remember serving vegetarian rice paper rolls, which were my favourite. If people didn't eat them off the platter, I would go and then just like scoff them. And people being like, ew, looks like a little finger. Okay, don't eat it. I'll eat it. Just shut up.
Rude.
It's
very, very rude.
It's really rude. So I do have sympathy for Colin in this situation. However, he does say, any bar anywhere in America contains 10 girls more beautiful and more likely to have sex with me than the whole of the United Kingdom. How do you think British women felt hearing that?
I like believing that, though. I've always said that. I'm like, I'd be a hit in Bolivia.
Yeah.
Like, I think, get me into a little Russian town.
See, mine is Ireland.
Yeah, and I've got no evidence.
No.
But it's a good way to get through the day.
Like, I'd be hot in Ireland. I'm not hot here.
Yeah.
God, no.
I've had friends who say that. They're like, I went to Japan, people were really into me. And I'm like, I feel like that country exists for me, I just haven't found it.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Colin just has that. However, He does seem to think that British women are stuck up, but it's like, sir, you're just insulting them all over the place. Maybe that's why they seem rude.
I find when people look at me and go, you're ugly.
Yeah.
It really turns me off.
Yeah. So
I think this isn't right.
Yeah, he wasn't really doing himself any favours. Then he goes to America and the girls just materialise, obviously. And they want to have sex with him. He brings one home with him and also has an extra one for his friend, like they're literal objects.
It's
like,
that.
I've got one. I also brought one in my carry-on luggage.
Wasn't it Denise Richards?
Yeah. I will say, though, the defence against this is it's a joke. It's a joke.
It's a joke.
Comedy.
It's
It's
funny.
meant to be making fun of the fact that people like Colin exist. And it's funny because it's unexpected.
It's funny because it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't hold him accountable. Harry and Karen.
Tell me, if you were in my position, what would you do?
What position is that?
Imagine your husband bought a gold necklace and come Christmas gave it to somebody else.
Karen.
I mean, would you wait around?
Alan Rickman's character, Harry, is pursued by his secretary, Mia. Even though she is doing the pursuing, the power dynamics are a bit screwed up because he is her boss and she calls him sir.
Did you find it hard to watch this when you were like, Harry, aren't you teaching the dark arts? Like,
Yeah, I know.
I was like, that's Snape.
It's like, you're Snape.
You're Snape. So, but obviously, like, his family can't know he's Snape.
Yes.
So I'm like,
So he's going into a normal office.
workplace, even though he is at Hogwarts other times.
Yeah.
And so he's going there, he's doing his work, and then he's coming back and moonlighting.
He must be exhausted.
As a muggle.
I know. Mia is literally touching her vagina and licking everything. She's far too sexual. She's like, anything for you. And it's like, you are a caricature of a woman. You are not.
She's not a caricature of a woman. She's a caricature of a slut.
Okay, very true.
That's the idea. It's just like, here's a one-dimensional slut to tempt Snape.
She's wearing devil horns.
Because she's evil and a temptress.
We're made to think Emma Thompson, who
wears
Karen,
wool.
who wears wool,
Which is shorthand for ugly.
yes, and unlovable, is dowdy and old and fat. She calls herself fat.
And this is the thing. You go, Emma Thompson isn't a fat woman. If she were a fat woman, that doesn't make it better. It might even make it worse.
I know.
So I'm like, I don't know. Firstly, I guess we just shouldn't be talking about fat in a derogatory way constantly.
I know.
Could
It's
probably
not
help.
helpful.
But
Not
there's
helpful.
like, what, a size 10 woman being like, I'm so fat and ugly. And it's like, I think you're quite beautiful.
I know. She's the only one in the end montage who is sad. She's crying and it's the most heartbreaking scene of the entire film. And it does seem like she is punished for speaking more than 27 words and having a sense of humour and having friends and a brother. Like, she has a life outside of her marriage, and that's incredibly deserving of punishment.
I don't know if she's punished for saying words or if she's punished for being fat.
Another problem is that at Christmas, Harry gives her the Joni Mitchell CD. And it's like she definitely already had that Joni
She
Mitchell
would have
CD
had
because she
it.
loves Joni Mitchell.
She would have had it.
That
and
really
it's
angers
not going to
me.
be a lot of years until you ain't got nothing to put that CD in.
But I'm torn because this is really, really sad, but it happens. And people say that that's like one of the most powerful scenes they've seen because it really shows this woman who sacrifices so much for her kids and is selfless, and the man who runs off and she's crying but trying to keep it in for the kids, and people are like, that's what love is. I love it. Then there's finally David, the Prime Minister, and Natalie.
Dear Sir, dear David, Merry Christmas and I hope you have a very happy New Year. I'm very sorry about the thing that happened. It was a very odd moment and I feel like a prize idiot. Particularly because if you can't say it at Christmas, when can you, eh? I'm actually yours, with love. Your Natalie.
David falls in love with Natalie the moment he lays eyes on her. They haven't spoken. Well, they kind of have a back and forth and she's like, oh, shit, oh, fuck.
That's such a trope
I
in British
know.
movies.
He says, he's in a room and he says,
Isn't she like, my boyfriend thinks I'm fat?
yes, yes. And he's like, I'll kill him. And I'm like, I love you, Hugh Grant.
Yeah, it's so hot. There's at least a 30-year age gap. I don't care.
I know. He says, who do you have to screw around here to get a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit? And then she walks in because she is the person you have to screw. And it's like, probably hasn't aged well. given workplace
No.
sexual harassment.
Although,
in
how bad do you want a
politics,
chocolate biscuit?
in government. She gets low-key sexually harassed by the president. And then
By the American president, who's Billy Bob
Thornton,
Angelina did they get tattoos? I think they did, and maybe
I
he has a
think so.
vial of her blood.
Yes.
That's not in the film.
That's not related. But I think what's really screwed up about this relationship that I'd forgotten is that David fires her because he finds her attractive. Cool. That's great for women's career prospects.
I mean, that's just where Me Too led us, isn't it?
I
You
know.
either get fired for being hot or harassed. They are the only two positions for women in the world.
Then there's this exchange when he's talking about firing Natalie.
You know Natalie, who works here?
The chubby girl?
Would we call her chubby?
I think there's a pretty sizable ass there, yes, sir. Huge thighs.
We are being gaslighted as the audience. Because it's like referring to a character being like, oh, you mean the blonde one? And Hugh Grant's like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. There's been a mix-up. No, the brunette one. And the person's like, she's blonde. But as the audience, we're like, we don't get it because she's brunette. It's like the Emperor's New Clothes. Like, it's actually a very confusing device.
I thought it was meant to be a joke
At the
because she
time.
wasn't big. But then I'm like, even if that was a joke, that's not particularly funny. And then I've spoken to people since who are like, oh, no, she was meant to be big. And I'm like, what?
I don't get it.
It's very strange. I'm moving on, however, to redemption. These are the redemptive factors that we do need to take into account before we move on to charges and sentences. This is essentially the defense. It's a movie.
So true.
It's fiction. And fiction is meant to be a lie that reveals some truth. The truth, for example, is every school has a majority of students who dress as lobsters at the school play and then one kid who's actually ridiculously talented.
Yeah.
At the talent quest.
Yeah.
And whose mum is like, no, my child's a prodigy. And you're like, congrats.
Yes, and you know, another truth that is revealed is that not everyone can have a key role in the nativity scene because there's only, three wise men, Jesus in a manger. You got to marry a Joseph. And at some point you need an alien. You need to fill it and go, you're a tree.
Another truth it reveals is that you can find better love than you ever imagined after heartbreak, even if it's with somebody with whom you do not share a common language. That's okay. Also, that sometimes you meet the love of your life in the strangest of places, like a porno. You know, like there's truths.
Yeah.
Are they all truths? No.
Are they universal to all of us? No.
The other redeeming factor, the airport scenes, as we said at the beginning, gets me every time. Gets me more now, given that aged well, the airport scenes. Hugh Grant as Prime Minister. I would vote for Hugh Grant as Prime Minister in a heartbeat.
He's really rogue on Twitter. Like, he's got a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
He's very go environment. He's very, I hate Boris.
I'm here for it.
Me too.
Then the final redemptive factor for me is the wedding scene with the song. Is
it all you need is love?
Yeah, and the people
soundtrack.
just pop up. If I don't get that at my wedding, I'm going to be furious. I'm going to be so mad because I've always imagined that.
You know what's fucked?
What?
They didn't get it on camera.
What do you mean?
The guy who was responsible for filming it didn't get it on camera.
Yeah,
he only got Keira Knightley's face.
Charges and sentences.
Okay, my first charge. You can't fall in love with someone when you haven't had a conversation.
Okay.
That's a rule in a court of law.
Yeah.
Language barriers are fine, but you need to communicate in some way about something. Like favourite foods, least favourite foods, so on.
Yeah.
You must know these things in order to make love happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Otherwise, it's not love. It's infatuation.
Or interest.
The movie isn't called Infatuation, actually. It's not. It's
Oh
called Love,
my
actually.
God, you should write that article.
Yeah.
So good. That can be your final line.
Yeah.
My sentence. Relationships are forged over food poisoning in Bali.
Okay.
That's not my decision. It's just a fact. A legal fact.
Yeah.
You need to get food poisoning together before you marry.
Okay.
Before you marry your slave,
Yeah.
you need to go to Bali
And
to a 3-star resort. Not 5,
No.
3. I need you to get some street food.
Yeah.
Okay? Meat. An egg. Okay? A meaty, eggy dish.
On an island?
On an island. You're not allowed to know what it is. And you know what you should do after you get your meaty, eggy dish? Wash it down with some tap water. 3 litres. And then I need you to go back to your 3-star resort.
Where you're sharing a bathroom.
Oh, 1 bathroom. Walls are paper thin. The walls don't even go right up to the ceiling.
No.
There's a waft. And I need you to get food poisoning out of 2 or more orifices. 4 between you.
Yeah.
And then I need you to see if it is love, actually.
Or just infatuation.
Yes. She will be swearing in Portuguese.
I remember.
He will be saying, oh, fuck. Oh, shit.
I remember getting so sick in Thailand. I don't think I've ever told anyone this. Getting so sick in Thailand and Rory was looking after me and I vomited. And as I vomited, I farted. And I was like, if he still loves me after this, it's meant to be. And that was about 7 years ago.
Exactly.
So
and so
really
I don't think you
nice.
can propose until there's been a shared food poisoning moment in a Balinese 3-star resort.
Okay, I have but one charge and sentence.
Okay.
Because it sums it all up. But I would like to preface this by saying this idea is copyrighted to me.
Oh.
I don't know anything about law, so I haven't filed anything, but just FYI.
Is this a precedent?
Shut up. Okay. Charge. Being pretty screwed up about women. Sentence. Love Actually 2, Feminist Edition.
Okay.
It's everything reversed for women. Hear me out. I want a beautiful lesbian love story. I want the entire Hemsworth family because they've all got to be connected. You know how everybody knows each other. And just lots of scenes of them being sexy. I want to ogle at Timothée Chalamet without having to hear him speak.
Is the word ogle or oogle?
Ogle.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I don't want to have to hear him speak. He gets 27 words because the rest is about his face and his body. I want Leonardo DiCaprio to be rejected for having too much to say and not staying in his lane.
And for being fat.
Yes. I want just a few
running joke.
Pudgy.
Yeah. Oh, my last girlfriend dumped me because I was fat. That's weird because you're not. But
yeah,
we're just going to accept that blindly.
I legit should write this.
Yeah.
And just cast all the beautiful people that I personally love and have the relationships that I want.
That's a good idea. I like that. Okay, my final charge and sentence. Charge. Making the only characterization that Karen has outside her relationship with Snape a brief conversation with her daughter about being a lobster for the nativity scene and not being direct enough about that being an issue and an embarrassment on the family name. Okay, my sentence.
Mm-hmm.
We know now, we were just talking about it on Mamamia Out Loud the other week, divorce is getting a rebrand.
Yeah, divorce is cool now.
We love it. We've got Kim Kardashian and Pete. We've got Megan Fox and a machine gun. We've got Courtney and a Tristan. Right?
Yeah.
It's hot.
Is it Tristan?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Karen needs a rebrand.
Okay.
She needs to leave
Well, she
Snape.
can do that in my sequel.
Yes. Yes. So I've actually put a plot point here for your sequel.
Okay, yep.
There is a character. When I looked up the characters, there was one I didn't recognise. And I went, she looks like her and Karen could have a little love affair.
Who was it?
Her name is Mrs. Jean Anderson. She's the mother of Joanna.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
At
She
the airport.
seems fun.
She seems single.
Yeah.
Because even at the airport, I'm pretty sure she's on her own.
Yeah.
I can't remember the dad.
No.
If he's there. So I think she's single. And interestingly, Karen is also a parent at the school.
Oh,
so they
my
meet
gosh,
at
yes.
a trivia night.
Yep. And I
Karen-
reckon Claudia Schiffer dumps Liam Neeson and he's like, I'm here to just be single with these ladies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but maybe the three of them are together then. Because I want a lesbian love affair.
Oh.
Is what I'm getting at.
I thought they were just friends. Sorry, I misread.
No. Sorry, that was very weird.
Yeah.
No.
Great. I'm glad we've agreed on what the bigger sentence should be.
Yeah.
We'll get to writing. That's all we've got time for today on Cancelled. Thank you for listening. You are probably going to want the evidence that we have tendered in the Cancelled.
Such as Keira Knightley's hat. Such as woolen outfits. Woolen hats.
Yeah.
That scene. Snape. where he is when he's not at work, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So to get the evidence, we do always put the evidence on the Twins Thoughts Instagram in like a little highlight thing. We tender the evidence that way.
Exactly. You can come and find us there.
Yep.
The producer of Cancelled is Rose Kerr, and the head of podcast at Mamamia is Elissa Ratliff. And if you're looking for something to listen to next, check out Mamamia's podcast For Your Wardrobe, What Are You Wearing? Hosts Tamara Davis and Denny Todorovich break down what you need to know in the world of fashion and answer your style questions. Because fashion is more than just trends. It's about feeling good in your woolen two-piece. They were asked about their tips for op shopping.
And my tips for op shopping are always go by category. So like tops, skirts, things, and then just sift through them. You really have to sift through them. Or you go in with a very clear list of what you exactly want, an objective. Otherwise, you literally could spend half a day and just walk out with like a bunch of
like
shit,
some
really.
cowboy boots and a weird hat.
Yeah, and like you'll never wear it again. So either go in with an open mind. If you're a op shop pro, I would say go in with an open mind. But if you're a bit of a junior burger, make your list, go in and look exactly for those items.
Find it in your podcast app. We will be back next week. Bye.
Can you also leave us a 5-star review if you liked it? Thank you.
Bye.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.